Excuse me, Mr. Apple, what do you mean Twig is a royal? Hello everyone, and holy crap, this is gonna be a pain writing. Yes, I am aware I have barely been going over any of Adam Apple's longer videos. I might go back and go over all of them individually at some point, but for now, I'm going over two of the most insane videos I have ever seen for Otherside, while yapping about two major theories that might just turn out to be true: the human theory and the king theory. I'll start with the king theory since it'll probably be the shortest section of this video. In a video Adam released several days ago where he played around with his OCs, he said this line while drawing Twig.
Well, he has a lot of scars from injuries, and some joint scars from being turned to that wooden stick thing. As a royal, he covers them up with vines, because in Everbeing culture, the weakness is usually considered improper.
When I first watched that, it was like almost time for me to get some shut-eye, so I was up way too late pondering over that. So basically, Adam confirmed the king theory with 3 words. If you're a longtime viewer of my silly theories, you'll remember my video on the king theory. And in the one where I go over chapter 1 of Otherside, I gave more evidence. So now in this one, I get to piece everything we know together now that the king theory has been confirmed. And we might be able to make a bit of sense of where Twig came from and why he acts the way he does. So, Twig has multiple forms, including a normal flesh form, a shadow form, and a wooden form, probably where he got his name. Twig has many vine accessories that act as gloves and pads for his body and limbs, but the fact he's hiding scars under those makes him 10 times more interesting. The scars are from him and, I quote, being turned into that wooden stick thing. The fact Adam Apple said being turned into instead of turning into makes a huge difference. This implies that Twig was turned into a wooden Everbeing against his will. Or, even more interestingly, he was created as a wood Everbeing and turned into a flesh Everbeing later. That would mean Twig is an artificial Everbeing, and might also explain why, while most Everbeings are 9 to 12 feet tall, Twig is a shorty at 8 feet. But that raises the question, why make him out of wood form? Like, why not just birth him, or however Everbeings reproduce? Why make him artificial when there's clearly dozens of Everbeings and a royal family? Wait, that's it. Twig is a royal. Twig was a royal, but the royal line of Everbeings was dying out. There was no way they could continue the bloodline. Something must have happened. Maybe there was no heir to the throne. Maybe the current king and queen couldn't have kids for some reason. So they created Twig, an artificial Everbeing made from wood, to be the heir to the throne. But something happened. Something that killed off all organic Everbeings and left Twig alive. Maybe a deadly disease of sorts that Everbeings could instantly die from, but since Twig wasn't a real Everbeing, he survived. And he's lonely. He has survivor's guilt. He's guilty. He's the only one who survived, and he hates it because he's not a real Everbeing. He's of wooden origin, not Everbeing DNA. It all makes sense now. The reason he wants to bring everyone back, his secrecy, the way he latches onto James, the reason he's ashamed of his scars, the reason he's so desperate to bring loved ones back is all because of his survivor's guilt, because he can't die the same way Everbeings can, because he's not an Everbeing. He's a royal, he's a king, sure he's a flipping blood god, but he's not a real Everbeing. And that's what hurts him the most. Well, with that, I can finally say that the king theory has come to a close for now. If there is more revealed later and something about my yapathon just now gets proved wrong, I might revisit it sometime. But this current revelation has me satisfied. Moving on to Adam's newest video. This section contains talk about death and grief. If this makes you sad or uncomfortable, then please proceed with caution. In this episode, it explains Dan's mom, June, more. As you all know, she's sadly dead, and we haven't seen much of her yet, but Adam did reveal we'll be seeing a lot more of her through episode 1, as it's going to be primarily focused on Dan and his backstory in life. June was a sweet and caring mother, but would often let her kids do dangerous things, like sit on fences and commit first-degree theft. But one day, June mysteriously died, sending the whole Redman family downhill. Dan was 5 when his mother passed, meaning he has memories of her and misses her way more than Ruby does, who was 3 when it happened. That also means June would have had way more influence over Dan, and this proves to be true, as Dan seems to have the energy and interests and passions that June had, like locking in and grinding to make a journal. I'm not going to dive too deep into what role June really plays in the story. If you want to see the full video on that, go check out Adam's video. Warning, he does curse a bit, so just be careful. Alright, on to the second big theory of this video. This will be the last major theory, and I'm adding in a smaller, more obscure theory after this one because I thought it would be interesting to mention. We know that June wanted to be a journalist and would always go on investigations about stuff people don't really care about, like Five Nights at Freddy's security breach. And she would get really invested into something to the point that it would be all she'd want to talk about. But what happened when she took that obsession a bit too far? I'm not gonna sugarcoat this.
We're in big trouble.
It got her unalived. Unknown means, unknown source, unknown topic. All we know is that whatever she was researching got her unalived. Which leads me to believe that the human theory might be slightly true. The human theory is the theory that states humans have been in Otherside before and wrote the prophecy for Dan and George years in the future. But what if the humans weren't ancient medieval beings like my dad, but rather adults about June's age who were secretly meeting up to talk about Otherside? So what if June's last investigation was investigating Otherside? If June ties into Otherside directly, possibly even having affiliated with a few Othersidians, and maybe Everbeings too, that would mean Twig probably knew her in some way. Maybe June used the same book Dan used to travel to Otherside, and that's where Dan got it from in the first place. But then she would have had to sell her soul to— Wait. Hold on. Another big realization. If June's last investigation was Otherside, she would have had to get there in some way. Possibly by using the book, which is why Dan just has it lying around. And she used it, and she got to Otherside to sell her soul to become a journalist. But Twig sent her on some scavenger hunt too, and she ended up losing his twisted, sick little game. And Twig, being the ruthless ruler he is, didn't spare her. Imagine one morning, June says she has to quote-unquote go somewhere. She said goodbye to Howard Redman. She said goodbye to her children. And she left forever into Otherside. Gone. Just like that. Because Twig decided she couldn't do it. So, well, she met her fate. I know this is very sad to think about, which is why I'm including this last theory that almost has no support at all. June Redman is shroomy, okay? You gotta hear me out on this. I had this little fantasy in my head for a while where Otherside is basically like heaven. When you die or you lose Twig's game, you lose your human body but get reincarnated, in a sense, as an Othersidian, with whatever interests you had. Take Clockmaster, for example. He could have been an engineer of sorts on Earth, but when he died, he was reincarnated as a steampunk-esque Othersidian who's about as tall as your average chihuahua. I'm just kidding, he's not that short, but you get the idea. So if June lost Twig's game and Twig decided to unalive her, he could have very well reincarnated her into Shroomy. The only reason I say this is because of two things. One, Twig knows how to reincarnate. His whole goal in the story, so far as we know, is to recreate the Pantheon using human souls. But to do that, you'd have to have some type of reincarnation, so Twig knows how to reincarnate. Two, in this drawing of June sitting on her grave, I know, cruel, there's tiny little mushrooms sprouting from it. I know I'm overthinking this way too much, but hear me out just a bit longer, okay? Just a bit longer. The fact Shroomy's color scheme even matches up with June at all is scary. Red for essence, tan for her skin tone.
It's more orangish, but you get the point.
And the fact that Shroomi's completely black and doesn't talk symbolizes June as a shell of her former self, a being that knows her ultimate plan failed, and she's trapped as an Othersidian forever under Twig's reign. And there's no escape. Shroomi's cape even represents how amazing of a mom June was, like a superhero mom. So, am I saying June is Shroomy? Well, for such an off-the-hook theory, I'd say the existing evidence is pretty clear. Shroomi's more than he lets on. But so is everything in Otherside, isn't it? Well, I appreciate you guys watching until the end. If anything in this theory video sounds off, it's because I'm sleep deprived, because these videos always drop way too close to my sleepy time. And that brings us to today's sponsor. I don't have one. Please subscribe if you liked. I am broke. Thanks for watching, and I promise I will go over Adam's first full video sometime in the next decade. So long and stay so spendy.
Well, let's not waste any time. Let's get right into the show.
What the? Oh, for the love of Kane! I think we got a new one. What's going on?
Well, if it isn't a new addition to the circus. Hello there, young, creature.